Habibi Fahodie, Black family, race first. Once again, we are back here at the School of Urban Philosophy where we are always straight up, straightforward, and straight to the point, where information is potent and brutal and raw. We believe that we must shake our people up. We believe that we must bring forth relevant content to inspire Black people to move differently. That's at the heart of the School of Urban Philosophy. Oftentimes, we as a people within this land, we experience a lot of things that we don't like, a lot of things that are not good for us as a people. And in many cases, we become, angry, upset, and mad. But oftentimes, we really do not know what to do. Oftentimes, we don't know how to move, what we should be doing. And because of that lack of knowing, we become stagnated as a people. We end up in a standstill. But here at the School of Urban Philosophy, part of our mandate is to provide the information necessary to raise the consciousness of our people so that no matter what, we will always know how to move and what we must do. When you think about a situation where a people are being economically, socially, politically, educationally, medically, agriculturally, militarily dominated and overrun, it requires serious analysis to devise solutions. Let me say that again. It requires serious analysis to devise solutions. And analysis doesn't come from nowhere. Analysis is the result of deep thinking, pondering upon an issue, a situation, a predicament. And it requires the proper seeing of that situation, issue, or predicament. That's an issue of consciousness. That's an issue of consciousness. And I don't mean the acquisition of information. I mean the deepening of our awareness surrounding a situation, the clarity. And that's what we're seeking to do here at the School of Urban Philosophy. We're seeking to provide an avenue, a platform to raise Black consciousness, to raise Black consciousness. So I'm about to pass this ball over to one of my comrades because I want to hear what they got to say about Black consciousness. Is there a need for Black consciousness? Does Black consciousness has a place? Is it relevant? Is it outdated? Is it an old, outmoded concept? Is it a false reality? Where does Black consciousness fit within the reality of Black people today? It's on you, comrades.
Hotep. I think I could jump at a little bit first. I believe Black consciousness is very much relevant because it sits at the center of our development and also our ability to come out this situation that we find ourselves in. Because Black consciousness will become very instrumental in our liberation and our empowerment and the refinement and our restoration as a people. So Black consciousness is very much relevant, needed, because of the power that it possesses once cultivated and developed properly, and what that means, because Black consciousness is an action. It's also a solution-oriented process of thinking and also behavior. So it's not just a consciousness in terms of people thinking about awareness in and of itself, but it's also a practice, a way of being, a way of moving, and a way of developing. So it's very much relevant and necessary. Hotep.
Hotep family. Appreciate that, Baba. I like to chime in. I think about Black consciousness. You know, the first word that comes is awareness, right? But awareness of what, though? Many of our people aren't aware of who we are, so we don't know how to conduct ourselves in a manner that we need to be successful in life. We don't know of our beauty, our intelligence. We don't know of our power, our creativity. We don't know of our divineness because we don't function from that Black consciousness. That Black consciousness awakens every crevice of who we are, and it gives life to our spiritual presence in the world. As long as we live under the guise of someone else, we won't be conscious. We will be, unconscious, allowing our enemy to direct us towards everything that they want us to do. So when I think about Black consciousness, I just think about, the recognition of when a child is born into our community, we recognize that as an ancestor return. That's Black consciousness. Because of that awareness, we treat that child in a manner that is welcoming them into a community that is going to help facilitate them towards what they're destined to be. It's just not, a child was born. No, an ancestor returned to us. This ancestor, is coming back with a deeper, more profound responsibility towards advancing us towards our liberation. But the only way to be able to view it from that perspective, that has to be from a conscious mind. It is rooted in that which is us, and that is Black, that is African, that is beautiful, and that is powerful. Ashe.
Ashe.
That's the powerful point when we talk about Black being beautiful. A lot of times Black consciousness can be just connected to race or our skin color, our skin tone. But when we think about Black consciousness and Blackness, it is our identity. It is how we connect Black identity to our Black awareness. It is an active role in your Blackness. Consciousness is the raising of thought and behavior in a way that, just like you said, Baba Disa, how when a child is born, that the child is an ancestor. Well, that raising of consciousness knows that that child has an identity that's linked beyond just this realm of consciousness. Black consciousness is our worldview. It's our total worldview. It has to be our reality. And a lot of times we don't understand the insanity that we're living in. Some of these things we have been desensitized, have been normalized, and we really have to shift our consciousness, our social awareness, our emotional awareness, our collective awareness. All of those things are wrapped into our worldview, our perspective. So Black consciousness is important. Black consciousness, again, is shaped to your identity, and it's also shaped into how you move and how you act. It's an actionable thing. It's not just in the mind. It goes beyond that. It's your state of being.
Excellent point. That's great. Excellent point.
If I may, yes. I was reflecting on the question, and in the field of health, and especially since you mentioned the aspect of Black consciousness influencing us as a whole people, including our health. When we think about health and we think about consciousness, we can go back to some of our, or let's just say one of our classical civilizations in Kemet. And when we look at how consciousness was described or outlined, it was compared to the heart, right? So the heart and the state of consciousness they were one and the same. When we look at the ability of a person or ability of a people to be stable in their consciousness, that provides a person with a sense of peace. You're able to sleep comfortably at night. You're not waking up in the middle of the night, losing sleep. So there's a link between consciousness, between the ability to rest, between the ability to have good health. So when we're talking about Black consciousness and we're trying to understand how Black consciousness plays a role with Black people, what we can say is that the consciousness of Black people is intimately tied to our hearts. It is tied to our mind. It is that thing which circulates throughout our entire body. It is that thing that allows us to either sleep at night, or if we have a loss of consciousness, then it is that thing that causes more stress, more anxiety, the inability to sleep comfortably at night. So Black consciousness plays a role not in our ability to socially interact with one another, the capacity to build and maintain healthy relationships and community and things of that nature, but Black consciousness is that thing that keeps us alive.
It gives us purpose, and we have to look at it as a sense of purpose that progresses us, that pushes us forward. That's what our literature teaches us. It is that social orientation that Baba is talking about. And beyond that, it's our historical experiences. See, a lot of times we look at where we are as a starting place just with our family, but we're on a cultural continuum. Our heritage is wrapped up in our identity. Our heritage is wrapped up in our Black consciousness and who we are. Is very, very much tied into our purpose. Some people say destiny. It's the collective awareness. It's the collective destiny. It's the collective purpose and progress. The practice of being Black is Black consciousness. What y'all think about that?
Yeah, I wanted to share about the fifth law coming out of the Red Book. Just read a few sentences. It says that consciousness is motion. Consciousness is determined by the quality of our actions. In this sense, consciousness is understood as active awareness. Consciousness is dynamic and not static. Consciousness is the ability to conduct and regulate oneself in accordance with wise decisions. And so for me, I'll put a big emphasis on wise decisions, because a lot of times we talk about, we don't like what's happening with our people, and it's because we've been programmed with a virus. So, like when somebody got a virus on their laptop, people be quick to be like, let me take it to Geek Squad real quick. But if we was to put ourselves in that example, we have to have an exorcism of the Black mind, of the Black spirit, because white people have pounced on us. They pounced on us, and they sleeping on us while we in the bed, and we wake up and we're operating from their point of view, and they pulling the strings, and this is why we see things happening the way they are. But it's like it's a reprogramming that has to happen, and also a cleansing of the internal and the external. And so when we look at studying our culture and our history, this is the reprogramming and the exorcism that takes place, because when we study the knowledge, we embody the knowledge, and we engage the spirit that comes from the culture, therein lies the entire washing. You come out anew, and you're able to operate the way you're supposed to, without having this virus in your system. And so I believe that Black consciousness is important for us to do anything proper for our people. Other than that, we're gonna move in the interest of white people. Like Dr. Carter G. Woodson say, if there's no back door, we're gonna find one, because we've been programmed to go in the opposite of our best interests.
I say, can I say something, Baba? Can I chime in?
Oh, yeah, it's on y'all. Y'all got the floor.
Yeah. So I'm sitting here thinking, right, and I'm looking at, Black consciousness has allowed me to be able to recognize Black insanity. It's allowed me to be able to recognize when our people aren't moving in our natural selves. but it's also given me the power to be able to know how to connect and help through the process of healing, to educate our people towards becoming better and becoming more aware and conscious of who they are. You know, until we could say I'm conscious, but if we're still doing things, I mean, that is considered what is, you know, in Bob Imhotep's words, black insanity, then are we really conscious? You know? So I think the black consciousness allows us to recognize, I mean, not only ourselves, but also allows us to recognize what we aren't in all of its facets. When it comes to ideology, when it comes to terms, concepts, definitions, when it comes to, you know, just a whole political understanding. Black consciousness allows us to be able to navigate through the things that try to trap us up, that try to put us in these awkward positions, you know, and it allows us to be able to connect with our people in an authentic manner. Ashe.
So, go ahead, Bobby. It's on you.
No, I was just going like channeling on what everybody was just speaking about, because it according to urban philosophy, black consciousness dictates that black consciousness is a profound understanding of our black experiences. And when you what was been put on the table is that we truly have to have a profound, not this mediocre or the surface level understanding of who we are, where we come from, and what we up against. Because once we dive into our history and our experiences, we really understand what our capabilities are as a people, what our possibilities are as a people, and where we can go from this particular point where we are at right now, and what it takes to win at this particular time in the 21st century. Because we're not just dealing with an individual. We're dealing with a massive system, you know, that's governed by a multitude of systems, you know, and when you understand that, then you understand the need to develop systems that can effectively counter that particular system. Because even though it's a system, and you deal with white culture, that's also a consciousness. If you look at it, it's a consciousness. And they have a profound understanding of their history. And that's why they honor it and they implement it to solidify and consolidate their power in the 21st century. And the only way that we're going to be able to deal with that effectively is when we change the narrative and how we move, and also how we think and how we approach the situation. So it requires, as urban philosophy dictates, black consciousness is having a profound understanding of the Blackhead experience. Hotep.
Now, see the question that popped up?
Yes.
Baba.
Yes.
So how I'm looking at this question, African consciousness is an indigenous understanding and awareness. Black consciousness, I mean, is the conscious that we have, I mean, in combating against, you know, the enemy that's trying to plague us. So one comes from one, or both are the same? That's the question.
Yeah, I would say that it's synonymous. You know, you can't have black consciousness without African consciousness. You know, from our perspective, black consciousness is our total awareness. It is being able to preserve ourselves as black people, as a black family, as a black woman, as a black man. It's us in totality. And if we're looking at black consciousness in totality, it cannot be absent of our African consciousness. You feel me?
I think you I think you on it.
Somebody else chime in? Want me to chime in on it? Because I don't see no difference between black consciousness and African consciousness. And it's like saying, okay, like it's a difference between saying I'm black and I'm African. You know, I think which is a good question, is a good thing that was put forth because of how we think nowadays. You know, and we think is a difference between, oh, I'm Black America, or I'm not African, or something like that. When in fact, You just don't have no understanding of who you are. Because if you had an understanding of who you are, then you would see there's no difference between being African and being Black. You know what I'm saying? So, and I think it's the power in that recognition. You know, the power in embracing your Blackness, that superiority, embracing your divinity, you know, the very thing that gave birth to you, you know. And once you embrace that and love that, then you can honor that in every aspect of what it means to embrace your Africanity, your Africanness, your roots. Because Africa had roots, and that root was birthed out of Blackness. And that's the power of everything. So there was no difference between African and Black. It's only one. Black consciousness is African consciousness. And you can tell whether a person have a true Black consciousness or African consciousness. Because sometimes I might write something in an essay and I might say Black and / African. You know, because both of them have a synonymous meaning to me based on my development and understanding of it, my historical analysis of it. Because Black is a science and African in truest sense of the word is a science. Hotep.
Good answer. Good question. Good answer. Good question. Yeah.
Baba say, "Goo, you made me think of something." Go ahead, Baba.
No, go ahead. Keep it going.
I was gonna say it's our psychological disposition. I remember that's something that you talked about in the literature, Black conscious literature, the race first literature. When we think about that psychological disposition, it deals with our whole attitude. It's how we show up. You know, it's our confidence. It's the pride of the 60s and the 70s. It's how we wear our hair. It's how we show up in a room. It's our walk. You could tell the difference between a Black man walking in a room and some of these other people. It's our whole disposition, how we think. And that's what makes that Black consciousness and that African consciousness one and the same. Because we just built different.
Great. No, I agree. I like all your answers. I appreciate your answers. Did you want to get in, Tommy? Okay. So what I would like to add to that. So essentially, we agreed that Black consciousness and African consciousness are synonymous from our perspective. So for the purpose of the question was pretty much to gauge where we were at, and at the same time, you know what I'm saying, to push the conversation a little deeper. So that's what they wanted us to see how we saw it, so we can make that clarification, online and live. Because many people may watch this and may have that they may not be clear on that, so it's an opportunity for us to bring forth that clarity. So here at the School of Urban Philosophy, we see no distinction between being Black and being African. So if one has Black consciousness, you necessarily have African consciousness. They're one and the same. But I would like to add to that and to say this right here. See, consciousness doesn't reside solely inside what you may call your brain. And oftentimes we think it does, because this is how things have been put to us in this society. Consciousness is diffused throughout the totality of your being. It's who you are. And what makes Black consciousness / African consciousness so relevant, because there is no Black solidarity or African solidarity in the absence of this type of consciousness. So we will not come together. We will not work together. We will not move in sync without the consciousness that precedes that. See, oftentimes we may say, man, we need to come together, man. Black people need to come together. And that's a good statement. That's a great assertion. But oftentimes when we don't put forth the proper analysis, we never understand why we don't come together. In most instances, it's because we don't have the consciousness to come together. And some may say, no, Bobby, I disagree with that. We don't come together because brothers or sisters have ego. And even if ego is in there, it's that ego can only exist in an African to the degree that the African lacks the necessary consciousness that he or she should have. Because ego, as a psychological term, is 100% European. There is no concept of the ego as we know it in African cosmology. Let me say that again. There is no concept of the ego in African cosmology. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when you get into Sigmund Freud's concept of the ego, what is the ego, the id, and the superego? All three are in conflict. Each one is trying to dominate the other. So that the reality of the conflict, the ongoing conflict, is the evidence that that concept itself doesn't derive from us. So even if we say people don't come together because of ego, you're still dealing with a lack of consciousness. That's still a distortion of consciousness that we're dealing with. So the solidarity, which some may call unity, is the result of the consciousness. And when the Black consciousness / African consciousness is non-existent, then that necessary thing which we are, looking for, this type of togetherness, can't happen because the consciousness isn't there. So that's the reason why I put the topic on the floor tonight. What is the relevancy of raising Black consciousness? What is the role of Black consciousness for Black people? Because we always talk about what we're not doing. I don't want to keep talking about what we're not doing. We got to assess the reasons behind why we aren't doing it. We don't work together to the degree that we should because we don't have the consciousness to work together. Right? So back once again, consciousness, Black consciousness, it is to possess a profound understanding of the Black experience. Because when you have a profound understanding of the Black experience, then you can proceed from there and you can look at the world from that vantage point. When you understand that you derive from the absolute essence that gives birth to all of the phenomenon that we seek to describe in the universe, and you are in fact that, then you can put everything else into proper perspective. Right? But when you lack that crucial piece of understanding, everything else becomes distorted. There's a distortion of how you see the world. Black consciousness allows us to launch the proper analysis. It enables us to provide the solutions. It enables us to devise the strategies and the tactics. Black consciousness is at the root of that. Black consciousness allows us to build the organizational structures and the infrastructure. Black consciousness enables us to see beyond now. It gives us vision. It's very important. What the brother say? We live in an age where people call themselves Black, trans, and Black queer, and Black Muslim, and Black Catholics. That ain't even a conversation for us. That ain't even a conversation. So those who call themselves that, you know what I'm saying? Once again, and I'm glad you raised that because you're raising good questions. Black insanity speaks to a psychosocial disruption. So Black insanity is a psychosocial disruption. And when you have that psychosocial disruption as a result of cultural misorientation, we end up with the maladaptive and abnormal behaviors that we seek to give justification to. Now, we can justify such behaviors because those behaviors are in alignment with insanity, because they are birthed out of an insane society. So since the insane society gives birth to those behaviors become normalized within insanity. But we don't have to accept insanity. So when we say Black consciousness, for us, Black consciousness, it defines a different reality, a reality that extends from the righteousness of what it means to be African. So righteousness becomes the model by which we define the behaviors to determine who's sane or insane. Anything that's ill-righteous or unrighteous or beyond righteousness is insane for Black people. Our standard of insanity must be a righteousness and how we aspire to be righteous. So we don't even subscribe to that. Those things don't even hold space in our conversation. I hope I answered the question. I question if we should make a distinction as Black African to describe our distinction from the Black insanity that is becoming more and more popular. Black African is distinct and pure. So I don't agree. I don't disagree with that. You know, the reason why Black can't be thrown out, and the reason why we don't throw it out is because Black have come under attack by our enemy to keep us from understanding the science of Blackness. See, Black is a science. Black predates anything the Europeans said about it. Right? So I do not disagree with Black Africanity, Black Africanness, or any of that. I don't disagree with Africanity either. Depending upon what Black person I'm talking to, determines which term I use. Right? Because we gotta use a terminology, as long as it's good and it's pure, that allows us to accurately communicate to our people. So that's why Black becomes important, because most of the people that we encounter, they can't process African. And so I'm not going to go into Park Heights and talk to them about being African when that's the last thing they're going to be able to comprehend. But they can get Black. So I can talk to them about what it means to be Black and the power of Black and the beauty of Black. That's going to register. And as I develop the consciousness, we can get them to another place. So that's more so what it is. So the distinction really is about how we are taking control of our narrative. That's more so what the distinction is. We are going to assume control of our narrative. So that's why we say Black consciousness. We say Black insanity to describe the insanity as displayed by Black people. And Black insanity is to make a distinction between what white people have defined as being insanity. So we're using Black insanity solely to add more insane behaviors to the barometer of what some of us call insanity. Case in point, for many individuals, a compulsive liar isn't necessarily viewed as being insane. But from the framework of Black insanity, a compulsive liar is insane. Why is he insane? Because he or she is operating in a way that's non-productive for the advancement of Black people. How so? Because to compulsively tell lies, you're going to disrupt relationships. And if you disrupt relationships, you're putting a hindrance on the work that needs to be done. So Black insanity is more so a distinction from what white people have defined as being insane, saying that we can't just use the terms and the concepts that they have defined. So that's why we say Black insanity, because there's some other things that are added in it. Because a lot of the behaviors that we are observing are actually insane behaviors, but because these behaviors are consistent with this society, they are going undiagnosed as being insane behaviors. So Black insanity for us becomes the distinction to what it is to be insane from a Black perspective. Yes, some of that stuff that's over there is over here, schizophrenia, lunacy, derangement. Yeah, some of that stuff falls over here, but it's a whole lot of other stuff also that needs to be lumped in as being insane behaviors. So that's how we get the Black insanity. And that's the reason why. Yes, sir, Dekai.
Yeah, I wanted to speak about the connection of Black consciousness in the aspect of a unified consciousness, as in unification with our people physically, and then also unification with our people spiritually. Because this whole thing of ancestral communication and communication with forces of nature, it falls into that category of Black consciousness. Because when we think about somebody like, Dr. George Washington Carver, he said plants spoke to him. Therefore, he came up with several different inventions, and he knew the use of several different herbs. But this use, that type of knowledge and interaction, it goes back to ancient Africa. Like for example, it's this quick sentence that Adibia was talking about from Igbo land. He was saying that Igbo Dibias believe that action, thought, deed, or misdeeds which take place in this world are recorded in a place called Aka Ose, And this is the astral light that fills the universe and beyond. So it's like our ancestors already knew that we had the ability to tap into a collective consciousness to make things happen. And when we think about Black progression and achieving Black sovereignty, this whole thing of ancestral communication is extremely important, because what white culture has done is made us extremely individualized. So you get this person who says, I'm self-made, I don't need nobody, I don't trust nobody. And I believe that one of the things that can help, heal some of the trauma around working with Black people, I think is becoming more familiar with our traditions and actually using them. Because I think a lot of people believe that the ancestors are just historical figures that people talk about, that are now in the grave, that we should be proud about because they did something for us to be successful now. I don't think they see them as people you can still talk to, that are actually trying to talk to you, that are actually trying to help you be even greater. Because the South Africans talk about how when we incarnate into a bloodline, you actually have requirements that you have to fulfill for that family. And with even coming to that family, you get gifts. And so this whole aspect of tapping into Black consciousness, it really allows you to expand on an individual level. But you can't really do that if you're not willing to go to a collective level within yourself. So, you'll have ancestors that'll speak to you, like, okay, like, here, I'm trying to show you this. But it's like, if we don't use that, then there's no way we can really have any true healing or true activation of Black power. And so the aspect of Black consciousness, I think, is also important to view it from the aspect of collective thought, unified spirit, and ancestral communication.
Good point. Who up next? We want to add on. I know I
Yeah, I
took a
want to
little
add.
bit of time.
I'm sorry, Bob.
No, go ahead. I wasn't saying anything. You
Okay.
good.
So, I'm listening to, the dialogue, and I'm thinking about, how we recognize, the divine, the social, and the natural, right? And the parts that they play in Black consciousness and that awareness, being in tune. The Kare was speaking about, being able to be in tune with nature, being able to connect and be able to hear the vibrations that give insight and give guidance. We have to be able to tap into all of those things, because our ancestors, our people were connected, to existence, to the divine, understanding the social order of things, as well as understanding the importance of nature, right? All of that speaks to, that consciousness. I remember when I first started studying, everything was political at first. I was studying from a political and militant standpoint, right? It wasn't until I started really getting into spirituality that it heightened all of the rest of the areas that I was working on, and the more rounded I became with understanding the entirety of who I was, the more solidified became my position, and more clear and disciplined I was on the steps that was needed to be taken in order for me to be able to grow to be the man as I needed to be. So when I look at Black consciousness, I look at the embracement of, purpose, the embracement of, essence, the recognition of the things, that try to pull you from your path because you're so in tuned, that you're on that vibration where you can actually pinpoint things and recognize things and get ahead of things. And that's where, look at our greatest leaders. They were people that were in tune, like Shaka understood, that, there was an enemy coming, he understood that. And he was trying to prepare his people to be able to deal with that type of onslaught, attack, and that's the reason why he was generating, so many people, bringing so many people together to build this nation, right? Because there's something coming, but that was a divine understanding, but he had divine people that were in his ear, that was speaking to him, that was giving him guidance, So when I look at Black consciousness, we also got to look at the things that facilitate Black consciousness, the importance of recognizing your elders, the importance of, being at your altar and praying to our ancestors, the importance of service towards the community, The importance, of spending time, with the watoto and your children. The importance of, having a compliment that compliments you. All of those things, add to that awareness and that understanding. Ashe.
Hotep. I want to jump in because from what Baba Dakare said and Baba Disa, and also what Baba mentioned earlier, and breaking down that whole dynamic, it lead me back to urban philosophy again in terms of Black consciousness is purposeful and progressive. And it also, I might be a little off, but it just, the mistake is on me, is that the purpose in a sense that is seeking or moving to rescue African heritage from the clutches of white imperialism or European culture or anything that's oppressive or alien or foreign. And the thing about Black consciousness is that it's a consciousness that have the ability and the power to save us. If you look at it, and when you think about Black consciousness, is a kind of consciousness of thinking and behavior, because it's a thinking and it's a behavior. It's also a feeling, that's geared towards preserving and empowering Black life. And without that consciousness, everything is in jeopardy when it comes to us. And we can look around us right now and see why there's a crisis in consciousness. And we can look at our situation and see that we are not as progressive, we are not moving forward as we should as a people, because there's an absence of consciousness, Black consciousness. Because Black consciousness places us at the center of that. It makes us a priority. And it gives us a mission as a people to move towards something that ultimately benefit us as a people, towards African sovereignty. Because when we speak about African sovereignty, we talking about all people that deserve it in terms of us, Black people. Because I remember, one time before, some of us gonna have to just, let go, because they gonna hold us back. They're not really doing anything to secure us, to empower us, to preserve us, to ensure us. So we got to begin to focus on what's going to get us over the hump, what's going to get us in a position where we can strategically fight for ourselves and defend ourselves. When I think about consciousness, Black consciousness, I think about social cohesion. When I think about Black consciousness, I think about a single-mindedness in terms of language of empowerment, because language can be used as an instrument to liberate, and it can be an instrument to destroy. But when you have Black consciousness, you speak in terms of liberation to empower people, to enable a people, to inspire a people, to educate a people. So that's what Black consciousness does for us. So when we push Black consciousness, we're pushing Black empowerment. When we speak on Black consciousness, we're speaking about urban education, the kind of education that bring synthesis amongst the people, that brings unity amongst the people, so we can form that type of relationship and bond that we can overcome the situation that we are in. Because we're not trying to stay in this situation. We're not trying to be content with this situation. We're not trying to be comfortable in the situation. We're not trying to be complacent in the situation. We're trying to progressively overcome the situation by any means necessary at all costs. So the only way you're going to do that, if you use Black consciousness as an instrument to our liberation.
That's a great point. Let me add this, because I want to be real clear, because when we say Black consciousness, you got two things that's going on there. You got the word consciousness and you got the word Black. So Black becomes descriptive of the type of consciousness that we're talking about. That's what's taking place, right? So in that context, we're looking at what we mean by black, right? So black, we translate to African. So all things are African. But black consciousness in that particular, category, you gotta keep in mind that it's a political thing. See, it's a political thing. We don't want to, because oftentimes what happened in the movements with black people is we could turn the work and make it too abstract at times. And so we can start thinking about black consciousness, and we can go into the abstract. But the purpose of black consciousness is to solve realistic problems that black people are confronted with here and now. So that's why black consciousness, when you think about it, like the classic, some of the classical time periods of black consciousness is, the African, when the Africans was booming, through Kwame Nkrumah time period, the 60s with SNCC, Malcolm X, you know what I'm saying? The 70s with Stephen Biko, right? If you look at that, that's like the classical periods of black consciousness. Martin Delaney, right? When they understood that it's a type of consciousness that derives from the deep humus of black experience, right? Of the black political experience. It derives out of that in terms of an analysis. So it derives out of it as an analysis, and that the analysis is against the backdrop of white terrorism. So it's analysis that's growing out of the deep humus, political, social, and economic humus of black people. This analysis coming out of it, and that analysis is made against the backdrop of white terrorism. And that analysis is not to solely break down white terrorism, it's made against it in terms of assessing it, in terms of its weaknesses and its strengths, to develop the proper strategy and tactics for black people going forward. So that's the type of consciousness that has to be developed. A working and operational consciousness, right? A real-time consciousness on the ground, you know what I'm saying? So when we take our cues from, that type of work, you know what I'm saying, of black consciousness from that perspective, we see that's what it is. It's like, what's the situation? What's on the ground? What's really happening for us on the ground? And how do we get that analysis out of there? Urban philosophy, right? It's coming out of that. You know what I'm saying? It's coming from making that analysis, looking at the black situation and evolving something out of that situation to push us forward. When you get a doctor taking a joke, right? You get that's that profound black consciousness, because he's looking at the heart of us and he's pulling something out to push us forward. When you're looking at a heavy Highland Garnett, that's coming through the abolitionist movement and then going, in 1943 and making that statement and making that profound speech, that took, the black abolitionists into a different direction, because for a time period, the abolitionists was caught up under the banner of white people. So you had these quote unquote fake white abolitionists and you had black abolitionists working side by side. But they really were saying two different things though, because the white abolitionists wasn't against the system of chattel enslavement. They was not propagating the destruction of the system. That wasn't what they was propagating. And you had the black people saying something different, right? So Heavy Highland Garnett come along and said, but check this out. I'm going to talk straight to the brothers and sisters that's enslaved, So it's that type of blackness, you see what I'm saying? It's the Alexander Crummels, you know what I'm saying? It's the Henry Bismuth Neil Turner. It's them, you know what I'm saying? That's formulating these analysis based solely on what it means to be black under these conditions, right? That's the consciousness that has to be developed. A consciousness that centers us within ourselves, that makes us deeply aware of who we are, and provides us with the tools to push us forward. Black consciousness. Nothing else is happening for black people in terms of Marcus Garvey, Why you think, you know what I'm saying, the black nurse line, the black star, this, you see what I'm saying? The black dolls. What do you think he was doing, right? That was black consciousness. That's what he understood. He understood that was the power. You know, Herbert Harrison, the forerunner of Garvey, same thing, you know what I'm saying? Black, right? So that's more so what this black consciousness is all about, right? It's this political thing. It's a political mind, right? Political in the sense that we're going to think, speak, and move in the best interest of black people, black consciousness. So for the last 10 minutes, I want us to focus on this here. How do you raise it? How is it raised? How is it raised? That's the question.
I think it comes from, for one, a group of people have to demonstrate what that looks like. And what that does is it creates like a captivation in our people's mind. Because how I understand it is like, you know, if we are embodying the totality of African culture, it's going to reach the right people. And I believe that one of the ways that this could happen as well is that the people within the group, we have to authentically be rooted in the traditions. And that's political. Because when we authentically study, when we authentically engage, we authentically communicate with the ancestors, then it becomes a thing that we live. And it's no longer something where it's like, he said, she said. It's like, we say this and we live this, and this is what I actually personally experienced. And I believe that's how we can raise it, because I believe our people are doubtful because they don't know how ancestral veneration fits into today's times. They don't know how Kwame Nkrumah is relevant to America. It's because they haven't seen it. All they see is what America showed them. And I believe that when we just demonstrate these things, when we engage the process as a group, and we come out and say, this is our body of research, this is what we found. You know, this is not just something that we seen in the book. The book gave us the instructions, we went on the instructions, and we built on the instructions. I believe that's how we could raise consciousness. Really going into it, really being intimate with it. Because this whole thing, I think that it's everybody's responsibility to communicate with their ancestors. Like, it shouldn't be somebody just be like, you go get a divination for somebody to tell you what your only ancestors are trying to say to you. Like, that's your bloodline. And then when we talk about this whole aspect of, you know, interacting with and looking up to people like Mama Harriet Tubman. I remember one of these sisters in the community, Kavana, did her hair one night, and I was taking her back home, and she was telling me how she was speaking to Mama Harriet Tubman. And she said Mama Harriet Tubman came to her a few times. I'm just like, that's powerful. But she's a little child, but it's like, they gotta know how to process this stuff, because those interactions is strategies that could be used in real time. Because when the ancestors come and they speak, they're coming to speak to say, we see what's going on. I'm about to give you this knowledge that's going to shake the world up. And you use this with what you know personally, and it's going to take you even farther. I believe that's how you got Sundiata. Because Sundiata, it was prophesized he was going to be great, but it got to a certain point where he was exiled from his native land because of some jealous people. But in his exile, he was able to unify with several nation groups. And they were able to unify together and collectively defeat an oppressive leader. But this is the collective working together. This is the culture working together. And it's also the ancestors stepping in, because they already spoke and prophesied on what he was going to do, but he had to manifest it. And the community and the culture had to work simultaneously together. And so when he's able to liberate his people and several other nations all at once, they now say, I say, my brother, we're going to make you the Mansa, the emperor, the king of kings, because you have helped to liberate all of us. And to me, I feel like that's how the energy unifies together. Like, but this comes from like what I'm saying as far as about personally going into it, listening to your guidance, and then going into it and embodying it. I believe that's how it goes.
Oh, tap. resistance. When you look at every time that, you know, people came together and they fought, even though they knew the odds were against them, it was a resistance. When people stood up and did things that other people thought about, I mean, but feared doing, but they seen people that looked like them doing it, and it created, I mean, the awakening to gather and fight. You know, the Panthers created a resistance. Harriet Tubman, Nat Turner, you know, you look at all of our ancestors that put in this work, you know, Patrice Lumumba, Amilcar Cabral, like, you know, you look at Haiti, great resistance, revolution, change. You know, when you are able to do things that people think that we're not going to do, it shows something. We seen it in Baltimore when young people got tired and they just started riding and people started standing up and coming together. You know, resistance, you know, us fighting against the injustices, the oppressions, the exploitations of our people. You know, we can't be all talk. Can't be out here just talking about, yeah, revolution and let's organize and do this, but there's no follow through. There's no work being put together. There's no boots on the ground. You know, it's when people band together and they stand together and they're saying that we're not taking no more and we going. And it ain't about us asking. That right there is what liberates, you know, that awareness and that consciousness to be political, to be active, to be like, you know what, we don't have no other way but this. This is what it is. You know, and that's how revolutions are brought about. You know, you look at the Cuban Revolution, you know, the stuff that they went through, they fought, I mean, they put their lives on the line. Look at Haiti, you know, they out there fighting with sticks and rocks and stuff to overcome, the people that invading them. But that resistance brought about togetherness. It brought about a political understanding. It brought about a pride that we're not going to allow anybody just to do, say, or anything. When it come down to it, I mean, we're going to band together and we're going to push forward. When you look at the gully wars, all of that, you're not going to just come at us any way you want to come at us. So I just look at it as resistance. Hotep.
3 minutes. Who want the last 3 minutes?
Well, I'll maybe split it. I saw Baba Shay go over there getting ready to hop off, so maybe I'll split it. I ain't going to take up too much time. Building consciousness, and also to address our brother Obafemi here with his point. One of the things that I've learned in my time is that it's a cycle of both self and group, and the cycle is the self. You have to be able to indulge in self-reflection. You have to be able to understand where your level of comfort is. You have to be able to assess and understand what I would say where your cultural self-esteem is, or your degrees of self-hatred, where that is and how that lies. How comfortable do you feel going out and speaking to another Black person who may look you in your face, see that you're speaking to them, look the other way and keep on going like you didn't say nothing? See, many of us can't handle a blow like that. And too many of those, we may start to retreat inward or retreat into that shell. So the consciousness happens at every impasse that we have with our people. We have the chance to grow and to develop it, because it is those moments that are the training ground for developing our consciousness. And as we develop those, I would say, as we develop that concept, that understanding, as we get that experience, then we're able to share it with our group or our larger community, so that when they have questions or when they are confronted with similar aspects, we have solutions that we can give our people to raise that state of consciousness. It helps to facilitate that unity that my brothers Dakare and Adisa was talking about. Those are that is the resistance for where we are at this point in time. It takes a level of feeling, and the only way that you could feel is to understand. And the only way that you could understand is to engage in a process of studying and reflecting. Baba Shegu?
No, I was pointing at Baba to go ahead and bless us with a close out. That's what I was doing.
Oh, okay.
I was pulling myself. I was asking the genius to bless us out, man, for this moment, man.
Right.
Send us on our way with this profoundness, man.
Well, I think Tommy hit it on the head, man. We can keep that. We can roll out with that. It is 10 o'clock, so we'll get out of here. So yeah, we want to thank everybody, man. You know, who joined us, who chimed in. We appreciate all your comments, your questions, just to help to push us deeper. If you like the content of this page, man, please share the page. Share the page as much as you can. Invite someone out to this page. We be here doing this political forum, this Black Forum, the first and the third Thursday of every month. We are doing PLM's Black Forum, but you can expect some other things that's going to be popping up on this channel. Just stay tuned, because once again, we really is driving home the development of Black consciousness. As always, here at the School of Urban Philosophy, we're straight up, straightforward, and straight to the point. And with that, we say, be for Hodie. Catch us on the next go round.
Every day.